again. It's time for Electric Gold, where three lifelong friends with a love for soccer that want to pretend like they know more than they do, talk about Nashville Soccer Club, all that's going right, all that's going wrong. I'm Ryan. I'm here with my good friends Evan and John. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic, Ryan.
Wonderful.
A lot better right now than I was 24 hours ago or so, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, of course, 24 hours ago, we were at the game versus Philadelphia. We'll get into all of that in just a few minutes. It wasn't the best of nights. But before we do that, guys, let's share a beer together. We always like to drink a beer when we're doing these podcasts. I love to hear what you guys are drinking. So, Evan, what do you got for us tonight?
Oh, okay. Well, I've got the Hazy Little Thing IPA from the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. And I've had them before, but I think it's been a while, and I'd forgotten just how much I liked this one. Really smooth, not too bitter, really juicy. It's a juicy beer, boys.
Juicy, I like it.
Love the juice.
How about yourself, John? What are you drinking this evening?
I'm also drinking an IPA. I am drinking a local IPA, Yazoo Brewing Company's own Hop Project Impy. It's an Imperial IPA. Tall boy. It is good. It is
lovely.
Yeah, it's what you're looking for in an IPA. A little bit of bitter, a little bit of juicy, just a perfect combination. Thank you, Yazoo. Pay me.
They always do a great job. Hey, it's an IPA party all around. I'm drinking the famous Founders All Day IPA.
Solid.
You can never go wrong with that one.
I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with this. One of the premier beers out of Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Not sure if you guys are aware, there is a thriving scene of breweries on the west coast of Michigan, Grand Rapids on up. Just dozens of breweries doing really good work. And if you're ever taking a summer vacation somewhere, go up there in the middle of the summer. It's not too hot. Tour a bunch of breweries, just hop up and down the West Coast. You know, you're on Lake Michigan and it's basically like being on the ocean. There's beaches and it's a great place to go and visit.
Well, my great friend Aaron Jolie has been inviting me to go up there with him every summer for the past few. He goes up there. He's from there. He's from the UP, and he goes up there every summer and camps for a week and hits all the local sites. And he says it's like heaven up there. So maybe I'll take him up on it. Maybe I'll go up there with him this summer.
I highly recommend. Well, cheers, boys. Nice to be with you this evening.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, well, let's get started with the week in review. Anibal Godoy received Matchday 7's Goal of the Matchday honors after his spectacular bicycle kick scored against Columbus last weekend. The goal gave NSC a temporary lead in a game that ended in a 2-2 draw in Geodis Park. Godoy's shot earned 52% of the fan vote to net the honor over Sporting KC's fullback Jack Davis, who scored a game winner against Toronto FC and earned 25% of the fan vote. A midweek check-in on Nashville SC's continuing injury woes offered a mixed bag of both hope and frustration. After missing 3 games with a hip injury, Lucas McNaughton's progress was positive. Coach Gary Smith heavily indicated that a return to the pitch was likely for McNaughton, who is desperately needed among a very thin back line. Meanwhile, the update on Shaq Moore, who is also dealing with his own hip/groin injury suffered in practice over a week ago, was less encouraging. Coach Smith confirmed that Moore would not play against Philadelphia, but with a bye week following that game, there is a possibility he could suit up for a rematch with Inter Miami on April 20th. Tyler Boyd also missed the most recent game versus Columbus, also with a hip/groin injury. Boyd's original injury was reported with little detail, and now he is officially on the injury report. He was in fact unavailable for the Philadelphia game, and his absence might have had an impact on the game strategy and formations played. And so NSC hosted the Philadelphia Union at Geodis Park on Saturday night, looking to build off of a promising 2-2 tie with Columbus the previous week, and also looking to establish any sort of momentum for the season moving forward. Meanwhile, Philly entered the match on a 2-game winning streak, most recently defeating Portland on the road 3-1. The first half of the match was dominated by Nashville's high press. NSC owned all the possession metrics and generated many more scoring opportunities than Philadelphia in the first half. Jacob Schaffelberg was exceptional on the left wing, constantly applying pressure to a Philadelphia defense that looked lost and confused. NSC finally broke through in the 42nd minute when Schaffelberg lobbed a terrific cross to a charging Sam Surridge, who converted the header for his second MLS goal goal of the season. This was Schaffelberg's third assist in the last 2 games, and Nashville took a 1-0 lead into the break. The pendulum swung in the second half, though. Philadelphia made a significant adjustment in the 59th minute, subbing out defender Kai Wagner for midfielder Alejandro Bedoya and changing to a more aggressive formation on the field. Nashville struggled to handle this change, and just 3 minutes later, Philly's star scorer Julian Carranza smashed the ball past Elliot Panico to even things at 1-1. Throughout the rest of the second half, Philly stayed in control and Nashville struggled to keep possession, frequently turning the ball over and playing defense. In the 71st minute, Drew Yearwood appeared to suffer a leg injury and was replaced by Sean Davis. The injury was later confirmed to be a tightening hamstring. The substitution was precautionary to avoid any more serious issue. In the 90th minute, the curtain finally fell on Nashville as Daniel Gazdag headed a corner kick off the bar and into the goal. With minimal time left and no offensive confidence or consistency, Nashville was unable to strike back and ended the match in a losing effort 2-1. Nashville now sits with a record of 1 win, 2 losses, and 4 draws, and is in 12th place in the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, Philadelphia is riding high on a 3-game win streak, sitting at 2nd place in the East, and is the lone undefeated team left in MLS this season. After the game, Coach Gary Smith's presser was a relatively candid one. While he once again mentioned the struggles of juggling injuries to key players, he admonished the performance of the players he had on the field. He mentioned a few times about a potential lack of confidence that teammates might be having in one another, and seemed to insinuate that the talent on the roster might not be enough as is to improve the performance. Then Coach Smith directly mentioned using the transfer window to improve the roster and infuse some new energy into the team. Let's listen to that.
Well, I do think when you get to this point, there's a couple of things you can do. We've tried one, which is changing the shape of the group. I think we're at a point where we certainly need to consider what it looks like in the open market to get a body or two in, and how we go about that. Could be quite difficult, of course, because the window closes soon. But I'll certainly be talking to Mike about that next week. I think we need some way, somehow, to try and, inject a little bit of energy, a little bit of sparkle into the group somehow. And if we're changing, if we're working hard midweek and we're still seeing the same product at the weekend, then, there are only few options that we have. And one of those is to try and find some replacements and some bodies that might be able to come in and give us that little bit of lift.
So guys, we've just listened to Gary Smith say that the team needs some sort of jolt of energy and it might not be existing on the roster as is. They might need to go look outside for this. What are your thoughts about how candid he was in the post-game presser and talking about this? And if we are going to go seek any sort of options, do you have any thoughts on what that might look like? John, what do you think?
I think his candor may have been kind of self-fulfilling in a way. Like, I don't know how to phrase this, but he's trying to shift the blame a little bit, isn't he? Because obviously, I don't think there's anybody that really likes him at this point. Any Nashville fans are pretty down on Gary. And maybe he's sensing that and immediately was going, hey, I don't have the tools to work with here. It's a bit self-serving. I don't know what's out there that we can get at this point, because it's not like we're going to be able to bring in a European or a South American player in April. So I'm guessing that the only things that we can do are trades. And I don't know enough about MLS roster rules, because no one does, to tell you what we can possibly do, who we could possibly get. I have no idea. No one has any idea, and I think that's intentional.
The rules and requirements around roster management in MLS are pretty cryptic, aren't they?
They're labyrinthine.
Evan, you have any thoughts on this?
I do. I think Gary is definitely deflecting. We certainly could use a little help given the injury situation and whatnot, but he is, in my opinion, mismanaging the roster that he has. And I expect that we will talk more about this shortly, but just starting Anunga over Davis or Gaines against the Philadelphia Union, I mean, you can't tell me that is Mike Jacobs' problem. So, yeah, John's right. It was self-serving. He's definitely feeling the heat. He should be feeling the heat. And frankly, it's a little bit sickening, because what do you want in a good coach in a good leader in any field. Accountability. Shield your players from the blame. Take it on yourself, whether or not it's warranted or not. I'm disgusted by that press conference.
It was an interesting 10-minute or so interview, and he went through the same routine of, well, we don't have our full complement of players. We're missing some key individuals. Fair enough. But then he seemed to insinuate or hint around that players are losing confidence in one another on the pitch. I'm not sure what he means by all of that. I'm not sure if he's trying to direct any comments to anyone specifically. If I was on this team playing, I'd have lost confidence in some people for sure when I keep seeing the ball get turned over and over again. That was interesting to me that he went there. And then he basically just very candidly said, we need new people on this roster. To put that in context, the question was, how do you jumpstart this team? How do you infuse some new life or energy into this team? And he says, we can do a couple of different things. We've already tried one of them, which is changing up the different formations, changing up strategy from game to game, trying to find a combination that works. And if that's not there, the other option is to try and find someone new to bring in, not even so much to replace an existing player or to enhance a certain position, but just to bring a new piece of energy to the team. Remember when Schaffelberg joined, just the energy that was infused by him joining, or Surridge last year when he joined the team, immediately there was this real surge of energy and positivity. It was short-lived, but at least during the League's Cup run, you really felt that he had brought new life to the team. And I think that's what Gary's point was that we could potentially interject some energy into this team and some life into this team by introducing a new personality into the mix.
But why wasn't this discussed in January?
Yeah, right.
I remember at the end of last season, I think I told you guys, I knew that we were going to play in CONCACAF. I think I said we need 4 or 5 new midfielders at least. Who did we bring in? Yearwood. And we lost Dax, so that's kind of a net there. We didn't bring in anything. And why didn't these conversations happen before the season? Why is it just coming up now? Yeah, it kind of pisses me off, huh?
The reason why is because we're 12th in the Eastern Conference and we have a goal differential of -5 and, we've only won 1 game out of 7. That's why it's coming up now. I think maybe they thought that what they had was enough, that Gary's reputation with defensive schemes was going to be enough. They certainly didn't anticipate having to struggle with the injuries along the back line that they've had to deal with.
I think you have to anticipate when you have a crowded schedule that you're going to have injuries. If you look over in Europe, every team that's playing Champions League, Europa League, whatever, they're full of injuries. They constantly have to adjust. I watched, unfortunately, Liverpool's draw with Manchester United today, but they mentioned Manchester United has, I think, 12 different central back partnerships this year that they were using in that game, something like 12 or 13.
Wow.
And they didn't even make it out of the first round of the Champions League. But, it's just a thing you have to account for when you're going to have more games. We knew we were going to have so many games, and we didn't make any big depth moves. We knew these injuries were going to happen.
Particularly with some of the ages of our key players on the roster, you want to have a backup available. And right now, it's pretty thin everywhere you look.
Yeah, I don't buy this argument from him at all because starting with last summer, he finally gets the DP9 he's wanted forever in Super Sam. In the offseason, we picked up Boyd, Yearwood, even Sedic. Certainly, we should have known that with CONCACAF, we were going to have some injuries and whatnot, but he's just not using what he's got appropriately. We picked up players. He's just not getting what we need out of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. You mentioned, starting Anunga. Haven't we seen enough of that to know what we're getting there? Can we try something different? I know options are limited when you look at the bench, but you're right. Sean Davis would have been a better choice. He played well against Columbus. We talked about it last week, and I think he had earned that start. He had earned the right to get back into the starting lineup. Like you said, where is Mackenzie Gaines? Why don't we ever get to see him play? I mean, he's fast as can be, maybe the fastest person on the entire team. He's young and inexperienced, but the only way he's going to get experience is if we throw him out there and let him get some burn.
He's impressed every time he's been on the pitch.
So I don't know why we don't see him more. I know there's a real resistance by Gary to play two fast players at once. We never saw Schaffelberg and Fafa on the field at the same time last year. And I guess that's maybe his same thinking this year, why we don't see gains. But love to just see what we got in the young guy, So it's frustrating. That is for sure. Okay, guys, let's move on to the best and the worst. All right, so let's start out with what was the best thing that you saw this week. I know each week when we do this segment, it's getting harder and harder to pick out the best, but we'll try. So, Evan, what do you think was the best thing that you saw?
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but I think the best thing that I saw this week was the new life in Godoy after last week's game. That goal seems like it just really recharged him. He was probably our best player last night. He was so much more active, so much more confident, so much better with the ball, more careful with the ball. Even tougher defensively, even though that hasn't been too much of an issue. He just seemed like he was recharged, and I loved it. I was here for it. The only thing I saw last night that he didn't do well maybe was that, silly foul and yellow card he gave away in the second half, but that didn't amount to anything. So unless I'm missing something, I think he had a great game, and again, I was here for it.
I think the first half in particular, he was just really outstanding. Did you see the same thing, John?
Oh, totally. There were 3 good players on the pitch for us, and I do say Godoy was one of them for sure. Yeah, he does seem rejuvenated. Maybe that goal was sparked, rolled back the years, and hopefully he keeps it up. Last few years, I think he's been kind of Jekyll and Hyde. He has a good game. He has a really bad game.
Right.
Consistent play from Godoy would go a long way to getting us out of this funk.
Even starting this season, it's been on or off. We've seen some good games. We've seen some not so stellar. Last week was great versus Columbus. And then last night, yeah, he was pretty solid where he was on the field and what he was doing. It was nice to see.
It was so nice to see. And, we talked about this last week, that the void that Dax leaving has left in the team, not just his playmaking ability, just his defensive ability and know-how, but just that leadership, those high expectations that he has of everyone around him. And we've been kind of asking ourselves, who's going to step in and fill that void? And if Zimmerman's on the pitch, it's obviously going to be him, but he's not there. And so somebody else is going to have to do it. And I was kind of hoping, especially after last week, Hani having a better game, I was hoping that maybe it would be Hani. Maybe Hani becomes that kind of a leader on the pitch, but maybe he's not capable of that. Maybe it's a personality thing. Obviously, he is a great player, but you don't see him leading his teammates like Dax used to do. So maybe it needs to be Godoy, especially if he's recharged and he's playing well. I mean, who wouldn't want to follow his lead, listen to his tips, want to make him proud? So let's hope.
He's the captain of Panama, isn't he?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. I believe he has for quite a while, as a matter of fact.
He's got the leadership chops. Yeah, I want him to take charge more, like Dax did, yeah.
Speaking of Dax, he's pretty non-existent this season over on Atlanta. I think he's played in maybe 3 games. He started 1. And I'm not sure if he's hurt or if they just haven't found much use for him, or if it's just finally time to hang it up. He was getting very close to the end of his career. He wanted to keep going. Atlanta signed him.
He's probably trying out for like a coaching job. Kind
he
of
might
a
be.
Facto assistant coach.
Could very well be. Who knows if he was still on this roster right now, if he would still be getting there. I would actually venture to say he would definitely be. If we're playing Brian Anunga as many minutes as we are, Dax would have all kinds of opportunity to play right now. And if that's the case, why did we just resign him for another year? I mean, I know he's old as Methuselah, but he had a pretty decent year last year, all things considered.
He sure did.
He certainly prevented a lot of this issues that we're seeing now. It's amazing how much that the difference is so stark with him missing now out of the middle of the midfield there. And I mean, especially on the defensive side, I think we really just miss his leadership and savvy and decision making, all of it. All right, John, what did you think was the best thing you saw this week?
Super Sam Surridge
Oh, yes.
We haven't really talked about him that much, but man, he's very impressive. He is that true number 9 striker that we have been looking for. The only time we've had it in MLS, Sapong, like the first half of 2021, was doing that job really well. And then, he was just a bit too old, and playing a full season, I think, really sapped him. But we haven't had it since. But Sam, man, he not only is he dominant in the air, obviously he had the goal. He had another one on a corner kick that Lovett swung in that he really hit well, and the keeper barely kept it out. I think he actually almost touched the goalpost to try to keep it out. But all around, he kept Glesnes occupied. Glesnes of Philadelphia has been one of the best defensive players in MLS, along with Zimmerman and a few others you can name. But he did everything you asked for in a number 9. He was running the line. He would force the corner kicks. I was really impressed. I mean, I love the guy. I'm straight up horny for Sam Surge. I swear.
Horny for him like you're at a John Mayer concert in 2002 at Starwood, right? He just makes your heart melt.
Oh my gosh, Starwood Amphitheater, boys.
I actually was at a John Mayer concert in 2002 at Starwood, and Maroon 5 opened for them. So
cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers. It was a beautiful night. It was cool. It was, going to concerts at Starwood, guys. Can we just pause the soccer talk for a moment and talk about how lovely it was to go to Starwood? Yeah, fuck soccer. But
what'd you smell there?
Oh, yeah, lots of weed. There was copious amounts of weed smelled in every corner of that place. For those of you who are newer to Nashville, maybe you've moved to the city in the last 15 years, and you probably moved here because you're like, oh, wow, Nashville's the it city. It's growing. There's so much going on here. I just want to tell you that all the things that made Nashville cool are not around anymore. And if you grew up here and lived it, you know that what made it so unique and interesting and wonderful place to live were all these things, these institutions that are no longer around. Starwood Amphitheater being one of them. Outdoor concerts way out in the middle of nowhere. You had to really drive to get to them. But I saw some of the most amazing shows there.
You had to make an effort.
You did.
Oh, yeah.
Especially driving from White House, Tennessee. We had to it was a long haul out there.
We had a long haul. Yeah.
What was the best concert you ever saw?
Oh, at Starwood or overall?
Yeah, at Starwood. Yeah.
Starwood, White Zombie and the Melvins and Reverend Horton Heat.
Oh, wow.
I was in high school.
So we're talking early 90s.
Probably 94, 95, I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember not much from it.
That's usually...
I'll take that much.
That was the typical Starwood experience.
I just remember it being magical. I remember driving a long way to get there, and I think it started raining, so Starwood, notoriously, you'd get stuck in the mud if it would rain, because it was just a big empty lot.
It was just grass parking. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember the music being magical, the night being magical, but I couldn't tell you any more details than that. Which is part of the magic of Starwood.
That's right. Starwood was grass parking, grass seating, and lots of grass smoking. Evan, what was your favorite concert at Starwood?
Oh, gosh. My favorite concert was Lollapalooza when Tool headlined, and right before him Snoop Dogg played, and I think there were some other really good. Yeah, it was killer. It was a lot of
show.
Fun. There was some other. This was when, what was it called? Tricky, remember that guy? What was that music called?
Yeah,
what was that genre?
Trip hop. That's right.
Tricky was there. James, remember that band?
Totally.
British band, James? Is that
right? That's right.
Yep.
It was a killer night. But I do have one other, if you will allow me, specific memory that I think was probably the coolest thing I've ever seen at any concert. And it was at the Tom Petty concert in like 2001. And they kind of took just a short break after a song, kind of set the stage up. Lights go down. One of the crew brings out something, puts it right in the center of the stage. And the band starts to play this like exotic intro. It wasn't anything you'd ever heard on a Tom Petty record before, and it was just like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden the spotlight shines over on the side of the stage and on Tom, and he's kind of like, it's almost like a theatrical type of thing. He's kind of like coming out slowly from the side of the stage and checking out what this mysterious object is in the center of the stage, and the band is playing this crazy intro, and he gets up to it, and it's kind of like a treasure chest, and the spotlight, once the spotlight shines on it, and he's really hamming it up for the crowd and everybody's going crazy, and eventually he pops that treasure chest open, reaches down in there, and pulls out the hat from the video of Don't Come Around Here No More. And as soon as he pulls out the hat and the lights go up and he puts it on his head, the band just immediately morphs into the song.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I've never heard an audience lose it like they did for that. And I'll just never forget that. Starwood was just amazing.
That's
sure
amazing
was.
Story. Yeah.
We could do an entire podcast just asking like Nashville natives about Starwood memories. My favorite concert, year 2000, I saw Pearl Jam there, and Sonic Youth opened up for them. Excellent concert. Really stellar. Really stellar.
Oh, I'm officially jealous of you now.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Because Sonic Youth are basically my favorite band, and I never got to see them.
Yeah, they opened. It's really ridiculous that they were opening for Pearl Jam. This should be a headliner by any right. So, yeah, that was my favorite one there. There's been so many good ones. All right, let's get back to soccer. And unfortunately, let's turn the conversation really sour by talking about what's the worst thing that we saw this week. John, what's the worst thing that you saw?
Can I just say the second half? Especially like the last 40 minutes or so, chaos at the back, chaos in midfield. I don't think any of the players had any confidence. They had no idea what they were doing. The first goal, Bauer and Muil both go to a cross-field ball. Neither one of them win it. McNaughton tries to cover for them and doesn't really. And then our defensive midfielder, the midfielder who is supposed to be his only job that he can do is defend, just leaves Carranza to run down the middle of the field, and Carranza puts it in. Just chaos. And that is so unlike Nashville SC. For the first 50 minutes, I thought this podcast was going to be more of the nostalgia. I thought, oh man, we look like old school Nashville SC. Like we were dominating. I thought it was just a matter of time before we got the second. And then it just flipped so quickly. And we never got back in it. And then the winning goal, I can't even tell. Again, if you look at the replay, I think on that one, we are doing zonal marking on a corner kick. We've talked about zonal marking versus man-to-man. I think we are doing zonal, but Lovitz just jumps like a puppet. I don't know, just flying, nowhere near the ball, nowhere near the man behind him. It's so unlike us to be making these individual mistakes at the back. And it doesn't really matter. I know we've got the injuries and everything, but the mark of a Gary Smith team in the past has been whoever's in there is drilled in the basics. No individual mistakes like that. But yeah, this is not your old Nashville SC, and it is so depressing to watch right now. So yeah, that's my bad thing for the week.
It's definitely not the old Nashville SC defense that we're used to. The mistakes and just the brain farts that seem to be happening. Like you said, that Lovitz on that corner kick, I don't know what he was. I just don't expect that from him. And he played relatively, a very good game, I thought, for most of it. Like that second half, nobody was really doing that great. But first half, he was terrific. And the last game against Columbus, he was so good. And I thought, oh, good. Now Lovitz is back to his normal self. He's somebody we can count on, rely on. His corner kicks in the first half looked great. I was so happy to see him taking corners versus Hani doing them all. But you make one mistake like that and it cost us the whole game. It was a mess. What about you, Evan? What's the worst thing that you saw?
So much to choose from. To build on what John said, the change in this team's character and this team's identity, especially in the second half of games, giving up leads. And then, as I alluded to early on, seeing Anunga start and play so much of this match when there are so obviously better options, I do not understand how he's not the last man off the bench, let alone a starter. You're telling me he's better than Sean Davis. He's better than Sedic. He's better than Gaines. No way. And I went back and watched the replay. It was hard for me to see a lot of what was going on. I was sitting so low in the supporter section, but it was a feeling. Obviously, the feeling was there at the game, but I went back and watched the replay on Carranza's goal, and he just waltzed right past Anunga through the midfield. That was the play, right? Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the play where a high ball comes across. Bauer goes up for the header. He gets a little bit of it, but, he didn't get it clean. The other guy, I think maybe knocked him off his balance a little bit. But as that was happening, if you watch the replay, Brian Anunga pulls up and watches that play happen.
Yep.
While his man, their best goal scorer, waltzes right through the middle to the top of the box to take that nice little layoff pass and bury a goal. I mean, Sean Davis isn't perfect, but I don't think he does that. I don't think he lets their best player glide right past him for the tying goal. Oh, I'm just so I have been the optimist so far.
But they've finally broken you.
They broke me last night, boys. I mean, that 90th minute goal to lose that game when we should have so clearly won that game, it broke me.
It's like being in the Temple of Doom and when they pull your heart out of your chest.
Yes. So I'm no longer optimistic, and I think everything that I have said so far tonight that I have been disappointed with all goes back to coaching and team character or team identity, which is ultimately the responsibility of the head coach.
Yep.
Sounds like Evan's ready for a change. I'm just guessing.
I think we finally swung him around. I think we're 3 for 3 at this point.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, I just feel like a fool. I basically feel like a fool for maintaining the optimism so long. And I have said some outlandish things, and they weren't even in the hot takes section. And they made a fool out of me last night, and I'm just so disgusted.
The joys of being an NSC fan. Well,
yes.
Since you mentioned it, let's just dive right into it. The Nashville Hot Chicken Takes. Okay, guys, it's your opportunity to get really wild and crazy. Give us your wildest, craziest take. I'll let you know how spicy it is. And John, we'll start with you. What do you got for us?
Okay. I've got one, and it may not be popular, but that might make it a good hot take.
That's the whole point, I think.
I don't want to spoil my hot take by saying that this is not down to any one person or group of people, but the back line, the fan group of Nashville SC, needs new songs.
Oh, wow.
New songs. We have too few songs, and I think it's sapping people's spirit.
I'm with that.
I missed the game, unlike you guys last night. I didn't hear the crowd. I heard you two specifically, which I shouldn't hear you two specifically, but I could make you two out. Oh, God, I feel so bad. I don't know why our song repertoire has diminished so much. When I'm singing Vamos Nashville for the 7th time at a game, I'm always going to sing my heart out, but it's just not inspiring, is it?
The feeling's not there anymore, right?
Yeah. Wait, what's the nickname of this city?
Music City. Yeah, I was going to say
Music
this.
City.
Yes.
There are some people I know out of the millions of people that live here, we can come up with some new songs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw one out for you guys tonight, and this better be sung at a game. It's inspired by Evan last week mentioning Cherub Rock.
Okay.
We need to start singing, "We want that honey."
That's genius.
It's right there. It's
that is
so easy.
genius.
You can do this with any player's names. You can throw just something little. So yeah, backline, if you're listening, please give us some new songs. I know they're holding up, what do you call it, the QR codes for lyrics. Don't do that. Print out some actual sheets. Hand it to people as they're going into the supporters section. They can look down. No one's going to pull out their phone in the middle of a game and look at the QR code to try
Not
to
unless
sing
you're
lyrics.
a Miami fan and you're trying to take pictures for your Instagram feed.
Dude, Instagram. Yeah, I know.
Don't get me started.
We don't need to be TikTok FC. But yeah, we need new songs. We need new inspiration because the team isn't doing it for us. So we have to take it upon ourselves to inspire the team, and new songs would inspire the fans to inspire the team.
If we can't have a fun product on the field, let's at least have fun in the supporter section.
Let's at least fucking party in the stands.
I love this. I co-sign it. It's a hot, spicy take. I appreciate it. I will say, I got nothing but love and respect for all the folks that organize the supporters groups, who put the work in, who sacrifice their time, who volunteer to bring people together to try and provide a fun experience for everybody in the games, and just to help us all come together and show pride and support for the team.
100%. And I will say that the pregame, the tailgate, is often more fun than the games are these days.
It certainly was last night, I think, the case.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate all those folks. I just wish that they would open up their minds a little bit to some new stuff. If you go around, the whole league pretty much sings the same songs.
Same songs every game.
And to some degree, I guess they do it because it's easy to get everybody on board and singing the same song. And if you try and introduce something new, it takes a while for people to grasp and follow along. But they will never do it if you never introduce anything.
Yeah, I'm not saying get rid of any of the songs. I love all the songs that we do sing. I just want some more added to the repertoire.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Great idea.
I do too.
Okay, Evan, what's your hot take this week?
Oh, okay. Well, Nashville SC is going to win MLS Cup this year. After they fire Gary Smith.
Woo!
We're at the end.
Wow.
We're at the end. You know, do I think they're going to fire him now? No, they're probably not. But I don't see him turning it around. I think if we lose 2 or 3 in a row here, maybe they go ahead and do it. Maybe not. Maybe it happens this summer. But at this point, it's clear Gary Ball. We saw the epitome of that last night, didn't we? A 1-0 lead going into the half, second half, playing too safe, playing without aggression, trying to park the bus, protect the lead, whatever you want to call it. That was the epitome of it. You know, you've heard that term derogatorily used for years, and it's not going to change. It's not going to change. NSC under Gary Smith has become like a little wind-up toy that hits the wall and bounces back and then hits the wall again and then bounces back and hits the wall again. I mean, we talked about this in real time last night, didn't we?
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah.
On those long throws. This is an example. The long throw-ins from McNaughton last night. He had about 4, right? Just in the second half from about the same spot, right? And the first one gets headed away by a defender. The second one headed away by a defender. The third one, you see where I'm going with this. We were saying after the second one, we were like, okay, this isn't working. Let's try something different. But we didn't try anything different. We kept doing it. And we used to do the same thing with Dave Romney back when he was there. It almost never amounts to anything, yet we keep doing it. This is kind of what we were talking about with Hani corner kicks, which it has been improving. But you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
There's a saying about that.
There is.
I think maybe it's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And doesn't it feel, I think I probably sound insane tonight. And I think it's because, it's because we're trying to get different results out of the same things. And so anyway.
So we're going to win the MLS Cup. That's your hot take.
We are going to win MLS Cup as soon as we get a new coach and break out of this cycle. Yeah. So that's my hot take.
Have you got a name?
I don't. I think you mentioned a couple, right? Last
couple weeks ago,
week maybe. Yeah. Who did you mention? Robin Fraser, and who else did you mention?
Fraser would be a good one. But yeah, I'm high on Ben Perman.
Oh, right.
That's my boy. I see no downside with him if we have to make a mid-season change.
What you don't want is to be, he was on your list, and then you see another MLS team go and get him and have incredible success with him right out of the box.
Exactly.
And that's very much on the table right now. We need to be in the market for a new coach. And if he's, the premier name that's out there, you just don't want to miss out on that. And then 3 or 4 years from now, be looking back and going, man, wish we could have gotten him. We could have.
Yeah.
Similar with Columbus's coach, right?
Exactly what I was going to say. We could have had Nancy. I'm sure he would have moved to Nashville from Montreal.
Instead of Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. What does Columbus have that we don't have? Name one thing.
I don't know. Pollutants? I don't know.
A good college football team. That's it.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that was a scorching hot take, and well done, Evan. Well done. I got to drink a beer just to cool down my mouth on that one.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is what insanity gets you, boys. It gets you a good hot take.
You guys are both going to beat me on this, but I do have a small hot take, which is that Jacob Schaffelberg is our best offensive player this year. And he's better. He's a more valuable offensive player than either Sam or Hani. As I mentioned in the week in review, he assisted on the goal last night. He assisted on both of the goals last week. He is the one player that I see consistently create problems for the other teams, whoever we're playing. Sam pops up for a few moments here and there. It seems like that we don't do a very good job of getting him the ball. I'm sure he could be a lot more dangerous if we gave him more opportunities. I don't really fault him. Hani, we saw it last night. He gets the ball in space and immediately 2-3 defenders just glom onto him because they're not afraid of anybody else. And he's 5'9". He's a slight fellow. He's incredible with his footwork and his shot selection and everything. But he can't make anything happen because he's just getting overwhelmed by the defense because we don't have much else to offer in terms of offensive threats, at least on that side of the field, on the right side where he's normally playing, it seems. But Schaffelberg is burning up that left side. And anytime we're able to get a ball over there to him, it seems like he's making really good things happen. I think he's our most valuable offensive player this year. So that's my hot take.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's hot take because, that's just straight up truth is what that is.
I know. It's pretty mild.
I mentioned that there were 3 good players, and it was Godoy, Sturridge, and Schaffelberg.
So you wouldn't have put Panico in there, huh?
I didn't see anything in particular. I mean, he didn't lose the game.
Okay. So you said it was Schaffelberg, Sam, and Godoy were the 3 that were positive players last night. Okay. Well, guys, let's move on to Soccer 101. So I've got some thoughts. You guys have kind of brought it up a little bit earlier in talking about the second half collapse that the team went through last night. It was almost like a light switch, just about. You could time it to a specific moment. In the 59th minute, Philadelphia subbed out their defender, Kai Wagner, and they subbed in a midfielder, Alejandro Bedoya. Now, up to that moment in the game, Philadelphia had been playing a back 5, a much different formation than what they have typically played over the past several years. And over the past several years, Philadelphia has been one of the most consistently successful teams in the entire MLS. Didn't they win 2 years ago, the entire cup?
They lost in penalties to LAFC.
Oh, that's right.
They were in the final.
They were in the final. I think they had the best record that year or close to. Last year, they were one of the premier teams. And over that time, they normally play a 4-3-1-2. But last night, they started out the game with a back 5. They got to that 59th minute. They made that substitution, and they switched back to their normal formation, the 4-3-1-2. The formation that we've seen Philadelphia play for years. From that moment on, Nashville had no answer. They did not make any kind of adjustment of their own. They didn't change their approach in any sort of way. And they just seemed lost. They seemed clueless. I wanted to ask you guys in Soccer 101, what was that? What were we seeing on the field there that made it so difficult for Nashville? How did that adjustment turn to 6 for Philadelphia?
So I've kind of got a micro and a macro thought on this. So like micro, I think it just represents the dichotomy between Jim Curtin's approach and Gary Smith's approach. So Curtin sees the issue and he sees it early enough to affect a change that will give his team an opportunity to get back in the game and ultimately win the game. That sub came, what'd you say, Ryan? 59th minute?
Yeah. Three minutes later, they scored.
Okay, so this is typical in soccer, bringing in a sub around the 60th minute or a couple of subs, but that's usually about when they start to come in, right? Those are your difference makers in the second half. We, historically, have waited on average until maybe like the 70th and sometimes the 80th minute to make a lot of our subs. And this is the difference. We do not, under Gary, recognize and make changes early enough to matter. And on a macro level, it is a team identity issue more than a tactical issue, I think, right? There's nothing brilliant about bringing in Bedoya, a good player, a more offensive player, when you need a goal. Jim Curtin's a great coach, but I mean, that right there is not a masterstroke of brilliance, right? That's just reading the game and adjusting accordingly. And it's a team identity thing. we have gotten to the point now, and this is maybe what Gary was alluding to when he was talking about players losing confidence in each other, but that's on him. If they know that they are likely to struggle in the second half, if they know that they aren't going to get subs coming in soon enough to make a difference, if they know that with a lead, they're going to be expected to then bunker and pray, what kind of confidence does that inspire in them to keep going forward, pressing for the win, the second goal? It highlights the difference in the coaches, but it's not a tactical thing as much as it is a coaching talent
He
thing.
referred in the post-game presser, Coach Smith did, to Earwood's injury and having to sub him out as having messed up the rotation plans that he had for later in the game. That came in the 71st minute.
Yeah.
Really waiting till late in the game. And when you make subs that late, what's the effect that has, John? What's the weaknesses around making subs in the 75th, 80th, 85th minute like we so often see Coach Smith do?
I would put it down to Gary Smith is a reactionary. A good coach can be a revolutionary. Jim Curtin saw that his team was getting outplayed, took off a really good player, Kai Wagner. I think he's had a lot of assists the last 2 years, even playing from the left back position. But honestly, Wagner was actually being outplayed by Alex Mouil up until that point. So Curtin said, you know what? We're going to take this player off. We're going to change the whole thing up, go back to something we're more comfortable with. Even if the personnel was different, it inspires players to be revolutionary, in my opinion. You want to think, my coach, he gets it. He's seeing something on the field. He's making a change. Gary Smith, his subs are reactionary. They're a reaction to someone getting injured, someone getting tired. How many times has he changed the course of a game by changing up a formation? Honestly, with coaching in soccer, formational dogma, like sticking to a formation or like a game plan or anything, is not as big in making a difference on the field as inspiring your players is. I really believe this. I think of a lot of really successful coaches. Sir Alex Ferguson, Jurgen Klopp, I include in this. They never had a positional dogma. They would constantly change formations, throw whatever works. But what was constant with them is that they always inspired their players. It's a mentality thing. Carlo Ancelotti, too. He doesn't have like a certain game plan that he always sticks to, that he's stubborn. He inspires his players to react to the moment, to bring out what is needed to win a game. Sometimes you suck butt for 70 minutes in a game. But look who always wins. Real Madrid always wins. Carlo Ancelotti's team always wins. I don't see Gary Smith inspiring his players in that way. I think that he is a good coach, again, in that he does have a game plan that generally will work, but at some point you have to break out of stubbornness, and he is really struggling with that. He has a one-track mind, and that one track is not working right now.
And I just think that when you put the pressure on the team to play defense for such long periods, I've seen this. I don't know how many games I've seen this NSC go through this, where they have to be on defense so much and just constantly running around, recovering, trying to play to whatever the next pass is. And they just get all twisted around. And as good as they are, and they have been very good defensively over the past 3 years, you're going to make mistakes. You're rarely going to play a perfect game. And like last night, we played a pretty excellent first half. The second half started to go downhill. We were still hanging in there. And then in the 90th minute, right there at the fucking end, they get a goal off of a corner kick because it's just so hard to play perfect defense for that long. And they were on the offensive third or half so much of that second half. I mean, even though the possession numbers look pretty even, they had the ball for the majority of the half.
Yeah, and if you're a player who's kind of bunkered down like that and hanging on for dear life and looking for inspiration, did you guys notice when they scored that goal in the 90th minute and the camera cuts over to Gary Smith, he's sitting on the bench by Steve and he's in the middle of popping a piece of gum into his mouth.
No reaction.
Just sitting there, just like, oh, well, happened again, like.
Yeah.
Oh man, it drives me crazy. It kind of reminds me of Shoresy. Did you guys see the last season of Shoresy where they're actually, maybe it was first, but the whole theme of Shoresy is that it wasn't enough to love to win, right? What's even more important is hating to lose.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, with all of that said, let's move on to the weekend preview. Next week, Nashville will enjoy a much-needed bye week, which will hopefully allow several players to further recover from injury. They will need all the firepower they can get, as the following week they will travel to South Florida to face the walking all-star team that is Inter Miami, a team that they most recently lost to by a score of 3-1 in the CONCACAF Champions Cup tournament. Meanwhile, here on Electric Gold, we'll be conducting a quarter-season review next week where we will discuss what we've learned so far about Nashville SC, what have been the biggest surprises, and what have been the biggest disappointments. And we'll discuss our ideas for how to right this ship and get this season going in a more positive direction. And then we'll also preview the game coming up with Miami. So guys, as you know, no game next week. It's an opportunity for the team to take a week off, recuperate, hopefully get some people that have been injured feeling better again. Is there any news you're hoping to hear out of the team over the course of the bye week?
Gary Smith fired.
Wow. That blunt, huh? Okay.
That blunt. That'd make a good podcast.
How about you, Evan?
Gary Smith fired, and the kit manager finally found the blue shorts that he had misplaced for, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks.
Love it.
They have been very rarely used this season. So, guys, no game next week. What are you going to do with all that free time? John, what are you going to do?
Well, there is one event in my household that we are looking forward to so much. It's basically our Super Bowl. It is a new half-hour special of the best show on TV, and it is premiering on Disney Plus next weekend. And of course, by this, I am talking about Bluey. There's a half-hour Bluey special happening next weekend. It is the best show on TV. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old in the house, and that's why we have discovered it. But let me tell you, me and my wife, we enjoy this show as much or more than our kids do.
Oh, wow.
It is awesome. I'm telling you. And I know most of the people listening to this podcast, since it's a sports podcast, are probably going to be male or masculine leaning, identifying. But I'm telling you, you got to drop the macho posturing and watch Bluey. You and the world will be better off if you do.
Wow.
And that's what I'm doing next weekend. Yep.
I've just barely heard of that show.
Yeah.
And I think I accidentally got it confused with Blue's Clues or something at one point, but it's a completely different, unique show, right?
They are. Yeah. Bluey is about Australian dogs. And it's just a magical show. It's magical for kids. It's magical for adults. It's awesome. I'm telling you.
All right.
Like I watch good shows. I've watched Mad Men. I've watched Breaking Bad, and I've cried to these shows. But man, Bluey, woo!
It's a whole other level, huh?
Yeah, it's a whole nother level, man.
Peak television.
I have recently discovered this through my darling niece Mabry and my brother Kurt, who loves Bluey as much or more than Mabry does, so much so that he actually had me watch an episode of it instead of the Super Bowl this year. I actually missed part of the Super Bowl this year to watch Bluey, and I actually didn't regret it.
You didn't regret it, did you?
It was an awesome show.
Yep.
Wow. So it's really well timed then that we have this bye week. Maybe they scheduled it this way on purpose because they knew the Bluey special was coming out. Evan, is there anything special you're doing with your weekend besides watching the Bluey half-hour special?
You know what I think I'll do? I think I will take my kids to the Monthaven Arts and Cultural Center in Goodlettsville to see the Sumner County Student Art Show, which is currently exhibited there. I got a preview of that yesterday before the match and was so impressed with what the high schoolers and middle schoolers in this county are doing artistically. And I can't wait for my kids to see it and hopefully get some inspiration. So I think that's what I'll do.
Fantastic. Wow.
That sounds amazing.
Way to be like a responsible and inspirational dad, do a culturally significant activity with your kids. That's just really impressive.
Oh, gosh. Well, thank you.
Yep. I haven't made any special plans, so I can't contribute too much to this conversation, but I will probably be fixing something or mowing something or planting something like that. So nothing too entertaining.
Basically dad shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just doing dad shit. All right, guys, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, even though the game wasn't that much fun. John, you want to let people know how to get in touch with us?
Absolutely. Twitter and Instagram, we are Electric Gold NSC. And now we have a Facebook page. Follow us there. Talk to us. Let us know if we suck. Let us know if we're awesome. Just let us know you exist and you're listening.
Yeah. And as always, we welcome questions or comments, of course, feedback of any kind. We'd be happy to read a question on the air and answer it. It may not be an intelligent answer, but we'll try our best. Thanks again for listening, and please keep subscribing, keep listening. We really appreciate all the support. And of course, come on, you boys and gold.
Come on, you boys and
Come on,
gold.
you boys and gold.